Hello and welcome to Paths, the podcast about people who have made dramatic changes in their lives. My name is Donal Gallery. I'm an actor from Dublin and I've lived in London for a good few years now. I wanted to give you a little intro and a bit of context before we get to the first episode. Like most actors, I've had great moments and low moments throughout my career. A few years ago, I was in a spell out of work and I was making ends meet by selling brownies from a market stall here in London. And I was feeling a little bit fed up and flirting with the idea of doing something else other than acting or selling brownies. It struck me that apart from people who'd moved into things that are very similar, like teaching acting or directing or other parts of the industry, I couldn't think of anyone who'd made a big departure from acting to something completely different. And this spoke to me of a kind of taboo that one senses, which is that you're either an actor down to your bones and it's your all-consuming passion, or you were never really cut out for it anyway. And that to even speak about those people is a bit depressing. The more I thought about it, the more I became convinced that in a career that's often not brilliant for people's mental health anyway, any kind of taboo like that or any kind of attitude like that only serves to pile more stress and pressure on when there's no need for it. I thought, given how unpredictable the acting industry is, maybe it's reasonable that people sometimes think, I wonder if I could do something else. And maybe you might at one moment be fully committed to it and fully in love with it, but a few years down the line you've changed as a person and your priorities have changed and maybe you have new passions. So maybe there's just no need for a taboo. I became really curious and I started asking around, and names would pop up here and there. And I started contacting these people. That is the makings of the podcast that you're listening to. So far, I have a few interviews with people, including former actors who became, respectively, the CEO of the British Pharmacological Society, an astrophysicist in Columbia University in New York, a director at Kickstarter in Brooklyn who helps indie films get funding. And as I listened to their stories, I've found them heartening and inspiring. It's not that people who love doing these things should do something else. Obviously, I myself am still an actor and I have no intention of stopping and I love it. But it's about people who willingly and happily change direction for their own reasons. And when you hear their stories and how they manage to do that in their late 20s or early 30s and go into a whole new career and do really well in that career, it's inspiring in a way that I haven't often encountered. Also, listening to their stories widened my curiosity. That's why I said this is a podcast about people who made dramatic changes in their lives. Whilst it will begin with actors who became other things, I plan to broaden it out to be artists of all kinds who did other things, or people who made the opposite journey and went from other professions to becoming artists, and then still further just to any kind of dramatic career change or any kind of dramatic life change. I think one of the brilliant things about podcasts is the freedom that they allow, and I've planned to make full use of that. So I'm excited to see where it can go. Finally, some of these episodes were recorded before the pandemic, so look forward to hearing two people in a room together and absolutely no mention of the pandemic. Okay, so over to our first guest, John O'Brien. John O had a really interesting career as an actor. His second ever gig was in Wojciech, directed by Sarah Kane, who became a close friend of his. And then he went on to do some really interesting stuff, including a TV show called Children of Dune with Susan Sarandon and James McAvoy, who he credits with inspiring him to leave acting, partially. He'll explain that himself later. And we find him in the boardroom of the British Pharmacological Society, where Jono eventually became CEO. Enjoy.